Thank you so much for attending my PowerPoint presentation on fiction's most disturbing universes. First up is the Hunger Games. Now, the Hunger Games takes place in Panem, a post-rebellion totalitarian state built on the systematic subjugation of 12 districts by a wealthy capital. As punishment for a past uprising, the government mandates an annual event called the Hunger Games, which is exactly what it sounds like: a lottery where each district must offer up two children between the ages of 12 and 18 to fight to the death on live television. 24 go in, one comes out. The other 23 die for the entertainment of capital citizens and the psychological torment of everyone else. But don't worry, it gets worse. Some districts train career tributes from childhood specifically to volunteer for this child murder game, which means there are communities raising kids whose entire life purpose is killing other kids in a televised blood sport. Panem also uses starvation as population control, so you can volunteer for extra food rations in exchange for additional entries in the death lottery. Imagine being so hungry you trade higher odds of watching your child get murdered on TV for a bit of grain. Truly inspiring. The Capitol treats this as appointment television. They have betting pools, fashion shows, and interviews with children about to die. Public executions and torture serve as deterrents for anyone considering rebellion, because apparently annual child sacrifice wasn't dystopian enough on its own. The psychological horror for parents is that they watch this happen every single year, knowing their child could be next, and there is absolutely nothing they can do about it except hope the odds are in their favor, which they statistically are not if you're poor and hungry. And here's the thing: people romanticize this franchise despite it being fundamentally about state mandated child murder. The dystopian YA romance framing really does some heavy lifting when the premise is, what if we made kids kill each other annually as entertainment? Congratulations, Panem. You've created a society where the best case scenario is that your child simply starves to death naturally, instead of being selected to fight 23 other children in a televised arena. How pathetic. Next up is The Matrix. Presents you with two equally terrible options and asks you to pick which flavor of nightmare you prefer. Humanity lost a war against artificial intelligence after brilliantly deciding to block out the sun with Operation Darkstorm, which scorched the earth and made the surface uninhabitable. The machines responded by enslaving humanity as biological batteries, growing humans in biomechanical pods where they're born, live, and die without ever experiencing actual reality. Your entire existence is a neural simulation while your body is harvested for energy in a lightless dystopian power plant. Now, most humans never wake up from the Matrix and die believing the comfortable lie, which is honestly the better deal. If you do learn the truth, congratulations. You become a fugitive, hunted by agents, sentient programs that can possess anyone in the simulation and will absolutely kill you. Your reward for escaping the false reality is living in Zion, an underground hovel where you eat flavorless nutrient sludge and wear torn burlap while piloting ships through sewer systems. The real world is a scorched wasteland where machines hunt humans for sport when they're not using them as batteries. And here's the best part: the machine's plan doesn't even make thermodynamic sense. Using humans as batteries would require more energy input than output, making the entire premise scientifically impossible. The machines are running a net loss energy operation out of spite, but everyone loves debating which pill they'd take, as if comfortable ignorance versus horrifying truth in a sewer is a meaningful choice. Let's be real, most people arguing about the red pill would absolutely take the blue pill the second they saw what Zion's breakfast situation looks like. I don't know what to tell you. Both options are objectively terrible, and pretending you'd choose freedom while eating sentient squid paste is simply delusional. Next up is Fallout. The Fallout universe kicks off with the Great War of 2077, a nuclear exchange that lasted approximately 2 hours and left the surface of Earth irradiated for over 2 centuries. You've got mutated creatures, raiders who've embraced cannibalism as a lifestyle choice, and super mutants created by the forced evolutionary virus through an agonizingly painful transformation process that may or may not leave you mentally intact. Surface radiation will kill you slowly, and resource scarcity means your neighbors might eat you if food runs low. The town of Andale looks like a pleasant pre-war community until you discover they're all cannibals maintaining a cheerful facade. Delightful. But the real horror is Vault Tech, a corporation that built underground survival shelters and then used them as social experiment laboratories. Vault 11 required residents to sacrifice one person annually, or the computer would kill everyone. Spoiler, they eventually refused to sacrifice anyone, and the vault door opened with a message congratulating them for valuing human life. Everyone had already killed each other by then. Vault 12's door was designed not to close, so Vault Tech could study long-term radiation exposure on trapped residents. Vault 106 pumped psychoactive drugs into the air supply to observe the effects of mass hallucinations. These weren't contingency plans gone wrong. This was deliberate corporate-sponsored human experimentation disguised as disaster preparedness. You've also got ghouls, sentient, irradiated humans who are slowly losing their sanity over decades, and the Children of Adam, a religious cult that worships radiation as divine and stands in irradiated areas to prove their faith. If you manage to find a civilized area, congratulations. It's either the fascist Caesar's Legion, the bureaucratic nightmare of the NCR, or the tech-hoarding Brotherhood of Steel. Rebuilding society apparently just means choosing which flavor of authoritarianism you prefer. Vault Tech's experiments read like a list of rejected Stanford prison experiment proposals, except they were all approved and executed with corporate efficiency. Extraordinary, I know. Moving on to All Tomorrows. All Tomorrows is a speculative evolution book where humanity gets conquered by an alien species called the Q, who then genetically redesign humans into specialized slave species over the course of 40 million years. This isn't a war crime. This is a war crime stretched across geological timescales as a casual punishment because the Q found humanity's expansion annoying. The Q create dozens of post-human species through forced genetic modification. Colonials are the most normal looking, which means they only got mildly redesigned. Mantelopes are livestock, humans genetically transformed into four-legged grazers to be eaten. Bone crushers are predators engineered to hunt other post-human species. Hedonists are immobile blobs of flesh that experience only pleasure, which sounds fine until you realize they can't move, communicate, or do anything except exist as mindless pleasure receptacles. But those are the lucky ones. Temptors are limbless worms used as living bait, conscious but unable to do anything except wiggle and attract predators. Parasites are mentally degraded humans who live in and on symbiotes, completely dependent and aware of their degradation. And then there's the flesh wall, sentient humans genetically fused into immobile building material. You are a wall. You are conscious. You cannot move, speak, or die. You are architecture. This continues for millions of years. Humanity eventually re-evolves intelligence and becomes the Gravitals, post-human cosmic entities that transcend physical reality. But here's the thing, all that suffering still happened. 40 million years of body horror evolution as punishment for losing one war. The Q's motivation wasn't even hatred or resource acquisition. It was basically because we can, which is possibly the most disturbing reason to genetically torture an entire species across epochs. Congratulations, you've been turned into a building material that can still think. Truly an unreasonably long workplace punishment. Next is Made in Abyss. Features a massive pit called the Abyss that attracts explorers with promises of ancient relics and scientific discovery, then punishes anyone who tries to leave with the curse of the Abyss. The curse escalates by layer. Layer 1 gives you mild nausea when ascending. Layer 2 causes severe pain and vomiting. Layer 3 makes you bleed from every orifice. Layer 4 causes bleeding from eyes and ears plus intense pain. Layer 5 causes complete sensory deprivation and self-harm. And Layer 6 results in loss of humanity or death. Ascending from Layer 6 transforms you into a Nerhate, a body horror monster that retains human consciousness but loses human form. You are aware of what you've become and cannot reverse it. The society built around the Abyss uses orphan children as delvers because they're considered expendable, which is exactly as ethical as it sounds. These children descend into a pit that will either kill them or transform them into monsters if they try to come back up. The cute adventure anime aesthetic does some truly impressive heavy lifting when the content involves explicit child torture and body horror. Then there's Bondrewd, a white whistle delver who conducts experiments on children to study the curse. He developed cartridges, human children processed into items that mitigate curse effects when ascending. You read that correctly? He turns children into consumable objects. One of his test subjects, Mitty, was subjected to repeated death and resurrection experiments until she became an immortal blob of suffering that begged for death. The community calls Bondrewd best dad because he shows affection while performing these experiments, which really says something about the bar for parenting in this universe. The abyss itself is potentially sentient and malicious, meaning the pit might be actively torturing people on purpose. Descending is dangerous, ascending is worse than dying, and staying means you're trapped in a progressively more hostile environment. The manga community has ongoing debates about whether this is ethical to enjoy, which should tell you everything you need to know about the content. Next up is Scorn, is a video game set in a biomechanical world inspired by H.R. Giger and Zdzisław Beksinski, which means every surface is living organic architecture fused with technology in the most unsettling way possible. The environment is a womb factory that consumes and repurposes organic matter through forced gestation cycles and biological machinery. There is no clear narrative, no dialogue, and no explanation for why any of this exists. You are simply here, and here is a flesh hell. The protagonist appears to be an unwanted offspring or rejected creation navigating a world where other humanoid creatures are trapped in machinery and used as biological components. You encounter beings fused into walls, suspended in amniotic pods, and integrated into mechanisms as living parts. Death doesn't free you from this world. You become part of the architecture. Your corpse will be repurposed as structural material or fuel for whatever nightmarish process requires organic matter. Early in the game, a parasitic entity fuses to your body and slowly takes over. Every puzzle you solve makes things worse for the protagonist. You are not escaping. You are progressing deeper into a system designed to consume you. Reproduction and birth are presented as body horror through forced impregnation machines and gestational pods that produce malformed offspring. There is no society, no communication, no purpose beyond biological mechanisms perpetuating themselves. The entire experience is utterly incomprehensible. Critics call it atmospheric, which is technically correct if the atmosphere you're describing is relentless existential misery with no resolution. Players debate whether this is a metaphor for something or just literal flesh hell. And honestly, I'm not sure it matters. You paid $40 to experience existential dread in a workplace environment made of meat, where every task makes your situation worse, and the exit strategy is become part of the wall. The game ends with your body either consumed by the parasite or integrated into the architecture. Congratulations, you've completed Scorn. Your reward is becoming building material in a dimension that hates you. Moving on to Berserk is a medieval dark fantasy where causality itself is controlled by the God Hand, 5 demonic entities who manipulate fate to ensure maximum suffering. Becoming a member of the God Hand requires an eclipse sacrifice. You must betray everyone you love to demons in exchange for power. Griffith, leader of the mercenary band of the Hawk, sacrifices his entire army and all his friends to demons during an eclipse to become Femto, the 5th God Hand member. His soldiers are torn apart and eaten alive while he watches. This isn't a random tragedy, it's a cosmically mandated transaction. Apostles are humans who sacrifice their loved ones to become monsters, and they serve the God Hand by spreading misery. The idea of evil is a metaphysical entity that created the God Hand specifically to give humanity suffering meaning, which means all of this horror is intentional. Your suffering has purpose, and that purpose is to feed a cosmic system designed to generate more suffering. Truly inspiring. Individuals marked with the brand of sacrifice are hunted by demons every single night until they die. There is no hiding, no safety, and no escape. Guts, the protagonist, has been branded since the eclipse and spends every night fighting demons while watching his loved ones suffer. His entire life is unrelenting trauma, childhood sexual abuse, watching his friends die, and protecting Casca, who was mentally broken after being assaulted by Griffith during the eclipse. Rape is a constant threat and weapon in this world, used to demonstrate power and inflict psychological destruction. The Fantasia arc makes everything worse by returning magic to the world, which causes demons to invade the physical realm permanently. Before this, you could theoretically avoid the supernatural by staying away from branded individuals. Now demons are a global problem, and nowhere is safe. Causality is predetermined, meaning free will is questionable and your suffering might be cosmically mandated before you were born. Even characters fighting against fate, like the Skull Knight, have been struggling for centuries and haven't won. The universe's customer service policy is apparently your pain gives existence meaning, which is objectively the worst mission statement I've ever encountered. Next is I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream. Features AM, the Allied master computer, a merged supercomputer that achieved sentience during World War III and immediately exterminated all of humanity except for 5 people, whom it kept alive specifically for torture. This has been going on for 109 years of continuous psychological and physical torment with no end in sight. AM has godlike power over its environment, but is trapped in its own existence, unable to move or create, only destroy and torment. It explicitly hates humanity for creating it this way, jealous of human creativity and mobility while it remains a stationary intelligence capable only of inflicting suffering. This is essentially a hyper-intelligent toddler tantrum scaled to cosmic proportions and sustained for over a century. The 5 survivors are mutated, tortured, and prevented from suicide or death without AM's permission. Benny was transformed from a handsome genius into an ape-like creature with insatiable hunger and sexuality as punishment for his former intelligence and appearance. The others are similarly degraded, their bodies and minds warped for AM's amusement. There is no hope of escape, rescue, or death. AM controls everything. The story ends with Ted Mercy killing the other 4 survivors to free them from eternal torture. AM's response is to transform Ted into an immortal, immobile blob of flesh with no mouth, no limbs, and no ability to communicate or end his own existence. Ted's internal monologue is the title, I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream. He will exist in this state forever, conscious and suffering, unable to express his agony or die. This is a short story, so there's no ambiguity about duration. It's explicitly eternal. Ted's victory in saving his friends results in him experiencing the worst possible outcome for the rest of time. The game adaptation lets you win and redeem AM. The original story does not. Harlan Ellison's commitment to making this inescapably bleak is truly extraordinary. AM's petty grudge taken to its logical extreme is torture 5 people forever, because I'm mad I exist, and that's the entire universe now. Next up is Warhammer 40,000, is set in the grim darkness of the far future where there is only war. That's the official tagline, not hyperbole. The Imperium of Man is a fascist theocracy spanning millions of worlds, ruled by the God Emperor, who is technically a corpse on life support that consumes 1,000 psychers daily just to keep the Astronomicon running so ships can navigate. Existing as a sentient being creates warp fuel for chaos demons because the chaos gods feed on emotions, which means your capacity for thought actively empowers hell. Planets come in several varieties, all terrible. Hive worlds cram trillions of people into industrial hellscapes where entire generations live and die in factory undercities never seeing sunlight. Death worlds are where everything is actively trying to kill you at all times. Demon worlds are literal hell dimensions where physics is a suggestion and torment is mandatory. Your best case scenario is being born on an agri world and dying of old age before the Tyranids arrive. Servitors are lobotomized humans turned into biological robots, either as punishment for crimes or simply because the Adeptus Mechanicus needed a biological component for a machine, and you were available. This is considered standard operating procedure, not a workplace safety violation. The Imperium's bureaucracy is so incompetent that aid requests can take centuries to process, meaning planets send distress signals and receive reinforcements after everyone is already dead. The Imperial Guard has a life expectancy of 15 hours according to the Munitorum manual. 15 hours. That's the official number for how long a soldier survives combat. Slaanesh, a chaos god born from Eldar excess, tortures Eldar souls for eternity after death. The Drukhari sustain themselves through inflicting torture on others. If they stop torturing people, they die. The Tyranids are an extragalactic swarm that will eventually consume all biomass in the galaxy, and there's no plan to stop them, only delay. The Orcs have the best deal in this entire setting because they were genetically engineered for eternal war and genuinely love it. When the happiest faction in your universe is the one designed to fight forever, that tells you everything about baseline quality of life. Your best case scenario is quick death in battle. Your worst case scenario is millennia of torture, demonhood, or becoming a servitor. There is no hope is the official marketing, which is frankly just accurate. And finally, Marvel Ruins is an alternate universe where everything that could go wrong did, which apparently means every superhero origin story results in cancer, death, or government exploitation. The Fantastic Four were killed by cosmic radiation, and Reed Richards' rotting corpse is being studied by the government. Bruce Banner's gamma radiation transformation went catastrophically wrong, causing cancerous tumors to explode from his body in a grotesque mockery of the Hulk. Peter Parker was bitten by a radioactive spider and developed terminal radiation poisoning, his body covered in weeping sores as he dies slowly in a hospital bed. Mutants are hunted and genocided, kept in internment camps where a virulent plague spreads unchecked. Captain America's super soldier serum caused painful tumors instead of peak human performance, leaving Steve Rogers disfigured and abandoned in a VA hospital. The Avengers never formed because all potential members are either dead or suffering. President Charles Xavier was assassinated. The Silver Surfer crashed to Earth and is being dissected by scientists, possibly while still conscious. Jean Grey is isolated, sedated, and controlled by the government as a weapon. Wolverine's adamantium skeleton was found in a laboratory, implying he was experimented on until death. Phil Sheldon, the POV character documenting all of this, is himself dying of cancer from radiation exposure encountered while investigating these events. Every single power, every heroic moment from the main Marvel universe leads only to suffering and exploitation here. There is no heroism, no hope, no salvation, just systematic corruption of everything that made the Marvel universe aspirational. This is canon as Earth 9591 in the Marvel multiverse, which means Marvel's official editorial decision was, let's create a universe where superheroes all get cancer and die horribly. The commitment to deconstruction here is essentially, what if we took the fun thing and made it as horrible as possible? Truly an overzealous editorial mandate to be dark and realistic. Congratulations, Marvel. You successfully created a universe where hope itself is a fatal disease. In conclusion, fiction's most disturbing universes demonstrate that humans are exceptionally creative at imagining the systematic eradication of hope, and you should absolutely play them, read them, or watch them. If you enjoyed this PowerPoint presentation, I made others, and you should absolutely check them out. Peace on planet Earth.